Don't you know that at the end of the day, sometimes updates can actually help your case? That may sound wonky when you hear it on its face, but I just want you to follow along for this for a second. The simple reality is that you are probably not going to be static in your case, meaning circumstances are going to change on a regular day-to-day basis. Things are going to either be improved or they're going to be worsened or they're going to change. That happens. But there are times where a change in your circumstances may actually help your situation. Whether it be, and let me use the employment law example, because one of the things that when I used to practice employment law, I'm not sure if it's changed, is that you have an ongoing duty to mitigate your circumstances. What does that mean? Well, that means that when you're sitting there and you are going against an employer, maybe you've been fired, and then during that time when you're going against them, they're expecting you to go look for another job. So let's say that you keep going, you keep looking for a job and so forth like that during that time period. And during that time period, you get a change in your circumstances. Maybe somebody else gets fired and you bump into that person who's also applying for the same job and they're interviewing for the same job. Well, up to this point, you've never talked to this individual because you felt like, well, while they were working for the employer, you couldn't say anything. And the employer is not going to tell you that somebody who they've done dirty to, just like they did you, is no longer there, so the two of you can swap notes. Well, guess what? You've bumped into them and now you have access to them. Guess what? That's a change in your circumstances. So when you're talking to them and they're like, oh yeah, if you need my help, I got you, because let me tell you what happened here to me. And I kept some of the paperwork to kind of support it. All of a sudden, you go back to your attorney and say, hey, you remember when you asked me if there's anybody else that's similarly situated? Well, I just ran across such and such. He was fired too, or she was fired too, and she just said that she's got some information that might be helpful. Guess what? Change in circumstances, because instead of you by yourself, you now have access to someone who is no longer with the company, you haven't looked for them. You didn't look for them. You bumped into them. You didn't ask them to tell you. They were aware that you got fired. They were aware you had a lawsuit. They were aware you were doing this on your own. They didn't talk to you because they didn't want to cause any problems. Now they can talk to you. It's on and popping. Change in circumstance. That's a good thing. So I say this to say that when you find yourself in a situation of wondering whether or not a change in your situation or an update to your situation is going to hurt you or harm you, as I've said countless times, talk to your attorneys. That's what they're there for. Because guess what? They can give you guidance that can help you out in more ways than you realize. Don't ever sleep on the fact that these people are there to help you with your case accordingly. So as you get an update, as you get something that may be minuscule to you or minor to you, share it with them. Because guess what? Now you've got an update to your situation. In the example with the employment law, you're not by yourself. You now have somebody else that you can rely upon that can help you with your case. An update can sometimes, a lot of times, always be a good thing.